Continuing on with the chapter on functions, we're going to look at Spreadsheet Functions Assignment 2, which is on page 49. So first of all, we're told to create a new spreadsheet workbook and enter the data shown, which I have done. And we're going to enter functions into the appropriate cells to complete the spreadsheet. So the first question says, enter today's date in G1. So that's actually a function. And it's a very useful function, especially if it's something that you're going to constantly be opening and printing out. So it gives you the date taken from the computer clock in the corner of the screen. So in other words, it's in real time. Question 2 says, calculate total sales, average sales, highest sales achieved and lowest sales achieved for each month, and copy these functions using fill right. So basically there's a function called sum, which will give us the total. Average will give us the average. Max will give us the highest sales, and min will give us the lowest sales. So there's two ways of inputting a function into a worksheet. One is to use the little FX button here and get the list of functions, and the other is to type it in yourself, especially if you know what you're doing. That can be often quicker. When creating functions, type the function name followed by an open bracket. So I want to use sum here, so I go equal sum, open the bracket, and then highlight the range of cells. So we want the total sales for January, so we'll highlight from B4 to B7. And once we're satisfied we have highlighted the correct range, we need to close the bracket and press enter. So the textbook says, for example, to add numbers in the range A2 to A10, first type equal sum, bracket, next highlight from A2 to A10 and close the bracket. Now that's all very fine, but that doesn't actually have any meaning for the example that we're doing. Anyway, just to go back to what it's saying in the textbook, creating functions using this method reduces the chances of making mistakes. So it is a useful way of inputting the range into the function. So the next function I'm going to do is average. So equal average. And do be careful that your spelling is correct. Open the bracket, highlight from B4 to B7, close the bracket, press enter. For high sales, the function is max. Open a bracket, highlight the relevant range, close the bracket, press enter. And min is the one that will give you the lowest sales. Equal min, open the bracket, highlight the relevant range, close the bracket and press enter. Then, because we're going to have the same functions for February, March, April, May and June, all we need to do is highlight that block of 4, and then you'll see the little fill handle in the corner, and if you put your mouse cursor on the fill handle you get a little black crosshairs. You put your finger down on your mouse button or your trackpad button and pull to the right, and you can see that the functions have been copied across. So for example, that says the sum of the range B4 to B7, and next to it says the sum of the range from C4 to C7, and so on across. This one will say the first one is equal average B4 to B7, the second one will say equal average C4 to C7, and so on. And of course those are relative cell references, because as it moves to the right it knows that it has to change the range it's referring to the range in the column in which it is. The next question then says calculate total Western area sales, average Western area sales, 6 month sales high and 6 months sales low. These calculations are based on sales figures for units 1 to 4 over 6 months. So in other words, instead of just highlighting a column for January or a column for February, we're going to highlight the whole block. And I'm going to use the other way of doing functions to do this. I'm going to use the little FX formula palette. So if you know what function you're looking for, type it in. So I want sum in this case, so we go sum and click on go. And as soon as you do that, the list of possibilities come up, but usually the one that you're looking for is probably at the very top. So sum, and we say OK. and we get this formula palette. Now, you could enter individual numbers into different fields there, but usually what we find ourselves doing is just putting a range into the first field. So what we want is figures for all the months and all the units. So it has made a suggestion, but it's not what we actually want. So if we delete what's there and we highlight from B4 down to B7 and across to column G, so B4 to G7. And when we're happy we have the correct range in, we'll click OK. To do the 6-month high, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the function max. Click Go. It comes to the top, highlight it and say OK. And again, the range is from B4 to G7. And we'll do this one last time for min. Remember to click Go to get the list to appear, and it's top of the list there. And again, the range that we want to do, if we click into the box, get rid of what's there, we can highlight from B4 down to G7. And we'll say OK to that. Moving on to the next question, we're asked to format all averages to 0 decimal places. So what often happens with an average is that you get a long decimal number. And so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the averages, and we're going to go up here, and there's a button for decreased decimal and there's a button for increased decimal. So you might have to play around with them a little bit to get the desired effect. So if I go increased decimal, I'm getting 3 decimal places. So I go reduce to bring it down to 1. And we'll do the same here. Center the heading in row 1 across columns A to E. So that's using merge and center, A1 to E1. And click the merge and center button. Question 6 says, format headings to bold and center the data as shown. So the main heading there is in bold. The date is in bold. The names of the months are in bold. And then his headings down here, monthly unit sales analysis, total sales, average sales, highest sales achieved, lowest sales achieved. They're all in bold. And on the Western area 6 months total, that's in bold, as are the other 4 side headings. And then we will be saving the spreadsheet as Western area sales. So you know how to save. So we'll end the video at this point.